Well, the EFF has continued calls for a national shutdown on Monday, despite concerns that there could be confrontations or possibly violence. The EFF has insisted on its right to protest just like any other party. To discuss, we're joined by the Deputy President of the EFF, Floyd Shivambu, with us in studio. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Is it all systems go for Monday?
Yes, it is all systems go for Monday for the national shutdown, which was called by the economic freedom fighters, but has since been joined by many other organizations, political organizations, trade union federations, community-based organizations, religious formations, and ordinary South Africans who are saying enough is enough. We know we've got a platform of removing a government through elections from power. But now we've taken this too much, like we've got an incompetent head of state and president who is failing dismally to provide electricity, despite the fact that it is the obligation of the state now to provide electricity to our people. So we are now going ahead on the 20th of March to demand for the resignation of Cyril Ramaphosa and for the return of electricity in South Africa.
What can people expect? It sounds like there's no central meeting point or points. Your president said people should protest wherever. It's got this spontaneous element. Are you yourselves just waiting to see what happens?
No, look, so it's a national shutdown because it's a protest action which is going to take place in all corners of South Africa. So in all municipalities, in all provinces, at national level, so everywhere. So wherever there is authority, we're going to protest and say that it's a national shutdown. It's
where
a
will you
protest
be?
action in terms
and
of
where will Julius Malema be?
We're going to indicate where we're going to be on Sunday as to where the leadership of the EFF will be deployed in terms of this national shutdown. But we're definitely going to be at the forefront of this national shutdown. We're not going to just call for a shutdown and not do anything about it. We are going to be leading it. And of course, there's participation of many other political leaders from different organizations and trade unions that have got to endorse this necessary, long overdue shutdown to demand the resignation of Cyril Ramaphosa because he is not running this country properly.
Are you deterred by the president saying that any disorder or anarchy will not be tolerated?
Look, we can't even entertain him. In the first place, we're calling for his resignation, and there's no anarchy which is being planned by the leadership of the EFF. We're planning a legitimate and legal, permissible protest action to call for his resignation, and we can't be told by him as to how we must protest against him. We're going to protest against him, and we have said on several occasions and in different platforms that our protest action is going to be a peaceful protest action. We're not overthrowing government violently yet. We're now engaged in a protest action that seeks to call for the resignation of Cyril Ramaphosa.
Why do you say yet? Is that not off the table, that you would violently overthrow the government?
Do you know, in the Constitution and the founding manifesto of the EFF, we clearly stated from 2013, 10 years ago, that if the democratic space is deprived of all political formations that are calling for change to exercise their right to democratically remove a government, we will be forced to remove it by force. We're not doing that yet because it is not yet closed, and we hope that no one is going to try to close the democratic space to call for a resignation of a useless head of state who is running this country to the dogs, who is failing to provide electricity, and thereafter, and therefore, threatening the supply of basic water to many people, because the lack of electricity has disrupted a lot of water supply systems. It is also threatening food security because irrigation systems that rely on electricity, it is threatening abattoirs that have to slaughter animals. So we are at a crisis level, which we cannot fold our arms, because generations to come are going to ask us, what did he do when this head of state was unable to provide electricity, against caution that do not do what you have been doing of trying to pursue an agenda that you have got no appreciation and understanding of?
You said that this is permissible. I think some of the concerns are around the following, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have laws that say you can protest, but you can ask for permission. What happens then is it's very peaceful. Residents know which roads will be used. They can avoid those roads, or they can join the demonstration if they want to. It is organized. This is spontaneous. Your president has suggested that roads could be blocked. People may not be able to get to work. In fact, he said that's going to be the case. There's going to be fire there. So the concern is not about the protest, but the way you are going about this.
Now, look, we are engaged in exercising a constitutional right and a permissibility to protest against a sitting government. And that is what we are relying on.
Do you believe you have a constitutional right to protest at national key points, ports of entry?
We do have a constitutional right to protest against a government that is running this country to the dogs, and that is what we're doing. And there is nowhere in the laws of South Africa where it is precluded that we cannot protest, and that is why we are saying that the protest can't just be saying that we're moving from point A to B, because we are dealing with a national crisis. We're not dealing with a Tshwane or Gauteng crisis where we can say we're going to move from the central Pretoria or central Tshwane to the union buildings and all of those things there. We are engaged in a national shutdown, which is expression of the anger and frustration which millions of South Africa are having out of this incapable government, which is destroying the economy, is destroying the livelihoods of majority of our people.
But isn't your right to protest limited in some way? If you are saying that roads will be blocked and there will be fire there, I mean, couldn't that affect my and other people's freedom of movement, freedom to work on the day?
Do you know what we have done since we announced the protest action in February? We have taken the patience of informing all sectors of society, businesses and taxi associations. We patiently inform them that this is what is going to be happening on the 20th of March. So it's not like we're shocking people it's not like in many other areas where you just come across burning fire or tires on a road and everything else there. We did caution when we have said on several occasions, we have called press conferences, we have written letters to malls, to shopping centers, to AXA, to everyone else to say that on this day, we are expressing a collective voice of all South Africans that we need electricity back because it is at the center of everything else that we have to do. So that aspect has been handled.
So is it fair enough for you to ask everybody to shut down? In the event that otherwise you may shut them down. Let's just look at what Julius Malema said. He said, anybody has the right to work. You're not taking that away. But there's going to be fire there, so with your right, you would be stupid to go to work. That's what he said the other day. And what about, what do you say in response to our analyst that very night? He said that is a veiled threat.
No, it's not a veiled threat. It's announcement of what is going to happen. It is just to let you know as a worker, as an ordinary citizen in society, that on the 20th of March, there's going to be a protest action that is going to take place. There's not so many protest actions that take place in South Africa, but now we're telling the whole country that there's a national shutdown, all corners of South Africa, all the operations which normally will be happening as usual are going to be interrupted, some of them, because there's going to be a protest action, a legitimate and legal protest action. And people must then have to organize their lives around that. That is why, for instance, we met in a very cordial meeting with Santaco, which represents almost all, if not all, taxi associations in South Africa, to inform them that we know that we are operating taxis on the roads, but the reality is that on the 20th of March, there's going to be a national shutdown, which has got legitimate demands, which, by the way, should be the focus of all our discussions.
And we're going to talk about the taxis, indeed. But there is research, and I mean, you can see it anecdotally, that South Africans are becoming increasingly violent during protest action. There is frustration here, and let's remember that hundreds of people died in the July 2021 unrest. In a situation like that, Is it not incumbent on all political leaders to be careful about the rhetoric they use to try and tone down the situation? Isn't Julius Malema's use of the word "there will be fire there" or the phrase "there will be fire there"? Isn't that problematic, given where we are?
It's disingenuous to want to compare the national shutdown, a led national shutdown, which is led by political leaders, where political leaders are coming to say this is what we're going to do. It is disingenuous to compare that to the July 2021 unrest. We have led so many protest actions as the EFF. There's not been a single life lost in it. We have marched to ESCOM, we have marched to JSE, we have marched to here in the SABC on several occasions. We have marched in different municipalities, we have marched in the mines. There's never been a single life lost. We have marched to Parliament. There's never been a single life lost. There's never been anyone who was hospitalized due to the marches of the EFF, which are led in a disciplined and focused way. And that is exactly what we're going to do on the 20th of March, when we lead the people of South Africa to express their frustration and anger against a sitting government that is unable to meet its constitutional obligations. That is what we're basically doing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with us exercising our democratic and constitutional right to protest here in South Africa.
Let's be clear, you obviously have support. We've been hearing from South Africans ourselves on the show and across the channel.
Yes.
However, some South Africans are concerned that they want to go to work, that they may not be able to go to work, that they may be in danger. Small businesses who, let's be clear, have been bearing the brunt of the rolling blackouts. They've been the ones suffering the most. Will probably have to close on Monday. There's a suggestion that it can even go longer. How do you justify your action to those people?
You know, contrary to what you are trying to suppose in terms of the small businesses, it is primarily the small businesses who have been at the voice, at the center of the voice that says that we need to do something about the electricity crisis, because a huge number of small businesses have been closed down because of lack of electricity. And they're not children. They appreciate very well that a single day action that is calling for the return of electricity is going to have far much more durable and long-term solutions, which are going to now give their business some stability. Unlike these intermittent and constant shutdown of electricity and all of this load shedding that is happening. So the people of South Africa appreciate and know the significance of protest to resolve some of the political crises that we confront in society. Apartheid was primarily, amongst other things, overthrown due to protest of people. We protested against the Gupta criminal syndicate. We started, and most people were saying, no, this is not necessary and everything else. And only to find later that even the ruling party got to appreciate the demands that we're making against then former president Jacob Zuma. He later on got to fall on his own sword because of the protest which we started. So protest is a legitimate instrument and mechanism to hold those who are in power accountable. And there is no way that you can then say that one day these people have been affected for many days,
and some of them
because
are
of lack of
struggling
electricity
to
in terms of what
Mr.
happens.
Shivambu.
Yes.
So I just want to pick up what you said, that it'll be one day. Can you guarantee it will be one day? Because the other day, your president, Julius Malema, said this could go on. It could be the start of a revolution.
We are leading the protest action, which is scheduled for the 20th of March 2023. And if the people say that we demand that this man must step down before we leave here, we will be guided by the people. That is how it is going to be, because the reality of the situation is that Cyril Ramaphosa is subjectively responsible for the crisis that South Africa is facing. He has got the power to assemble the skilled or unskilled people to could solve the energy crisis, to could provide proper direction in terms of creation of jobs, in terms of doing what is meaningful to benefit all South Africans. But he has currently demonstrated that he doesn't have the capacity nor willingness to could provide solutions to our country. That is why we're saying he must step down as head of state. He is captured, he is conflicted on many other questions that have to be dealt with.
I'm sorry to cut it, we're running out of time, and I want to talk about the taxi. The National Taxi Alliance told us that there are other ways to resolve this. There could have been dialogue. Economically, this will make things worse. Your response?
No, look, the National Taxi Alliance and the Santaco, we met with them and then they have said that they are an apolitical organization. They do not want to enter into political battles. But the National Taxiers Alliance and Santaco have previously been engaged in a shutdown. They stopped the N1 to demand certain things for their own sector. So they also appreciate that a shutdown, a protest can be an instrument to meet certain demands and to meet certain obligations. So they appreciate. In the meeting that we have had with them, we are more than satisfied that they are not opposed at all to what we are standing for. They were just asking that there must not be interruption of the taxi movements, which, by the way, we will encourage so that people can move from one point to another,
so there won't
particularly
be,
for essential services.
There won't be, in your mind, confrontations between demonstrators and people trying to get to work in taxis?
No, there will not be this disruption of anyone. We are protesting against the sitting government, and the demand is that Cyril Ramaphosa must step down as the head of state, and that we demand electricity to be brought back so that we can have the supply of water that is secured, we can have food security, we can have as many people as possible getting their jobs back, to start many other initiatives. We can reboot the economy to have the absorptive labor capacity that is long overdue in South Africa. That is our demand.
All right, thank you for your time, and please chat to us. Again, we hope to chat to you on Monday after we see how things pan out. That was Floyd Shivambu, EFF Deputy President.